That was a good song. I like it. If you didn't notice, Karen just had Genesis 1:1 up there, so we're going to just go through the whole Bible this morning. Who's ready? All right, I was just kidding. No. Right. We about to wrap it all up in 56 minutes. Here we go. Everybody, buckle up. It's going to be lots of fun. Oh, my goodness. So I love what one of the lines in that song was, he can empty any grave. I've never heard that song before, but that was really good. And it instantly made me think of Lazarus because, we're all kind of familiar with the story of Jesus calling forth Lazarus from the grave. He was in the tomb for 4 days, and you got to think about that, okay, especially considering the time period. 4 days in a tomb, that's, what we would call probably a little too late for spiritual CPR. You know what I mean? And how often have we felt like that? I know I have felt like that a lot, that I have been in my tomb way more than 4 days, and there is no way that anybody's calling me out of this thing. Because when we talk about, bringing the dead to life, yes, that does mean literally in a lot of cases. But in a lot of cases like mine, like yours, I know too, is that you can be living a spiritual death and just be so emotionally, spiritually dead that you feel like nothing is ever going to pull you out of it. But Jesus does. Jesus does. And so I love how it doesn't matter how many times we seem to find ourselves back into a pit, he is always there and always able to call us out. One of the things I'm really finding out the more I do this walk is that none of us will ever do it perfectly. We never get to a point where we're just on this cool plateau and we just never get discouraged and we never have any negative feelings and we don't accidentally talk bad about our neighbor and we don't accidentally, whatever. Like, we're human. But, man looks at the outside, God looks at our heart. And so God always knows the intentions and the purity of your heart. Man may misunderstand you, but he never will. Even when we don't understand ourselves, he understands us and loves us exactly where we are. So I put up a fight from speaking this morning, and now I'm just so excited that I actually am because I love sharing with you guys just kind of where I'm at and what God's been saying to me, because I know whatever I'm going through, it's going to be relevant to what you're going through or what you're about to be going through or something that you just came out of. Because let's be honest, you're either going through something, you just got out of something, or you're about to go into something. So we've all got a common ground there. And if you're at a lull, just get ready because, something's always around the corner. You know what I mean? There's always something we need Jesus for, whether it's a fight with our friend or a trip to Walmart. We all need Jesus for something, especially the trip to Walmart. Lord, help me. Hallelujah. Amen. I have this shirt that I never wear because it's a test every time I wear it. So Spencer got me this really cute T-shirt a couple years ago, and it's a quote from Proverbs 31, and it says, she is clothed with strength and dignity and laughs without fear of the future. And it never fails that every time I wear that shirt, something happens that makes the old me want to come out guns blazing. And I will look anything but a Proverbs 31 lady. So I just don't wear that shirt. And I definitely don't wear, like, my Christian T-shirts in public anymore just because, like, it's almost like you put a bullseye on yourself that you're about to get. You guys, I got flipped off by an old lady yesterday. Taking my kid to church camp. That's never happened to me in my whole life. So I'm going down 13th Street, and you have, like, you can go a little faster than maybe you should on 13th Street, because it's either 12th or 13th, that street right up here where there's no stop signs, and you can just glide on down to Sycamore. So, okay, look, I was maybe going 30. Like, I probably should have been going 20 or 25, but I was going 30. But this car pulls out in front of me from Pine, and is going at half the speed of smell. And so, just naturally, like, here comes, my car, and I didn't purposefully get up on her tail and stay close, but there was a part of me that I go from going 30 miles an hour to 0.25 miles an hour, and I'm like, something is wrong here. And so before I know it, like, here, you guys are me. And this lady's in the passenger seat. And it wasn't enough for her to gradually get her finger out there. She had to turn her whole body and make sure that I saw the words come out of her mouth of what I could do. And I thought, my goodness, I'm so glad I don't have on my Proverbs 31 t-shirt right now. But what was great about a relationship with God is that my first response was exactly what you did. I started cracking up. Like, I looked at her, I was like, I couldn't help it. I was so shocked, and like, it was so funny. And, there was a time when, like, that really would have made me mad. I'd have got lit and been ready to fight an old lady. You know what I mean? Like, it was hilarious. It was so funny. So, yeah, that is just the kind of thing that happens to us when we're trying to do right by the Lord and by ourselves. Like, you're just moseying along, and we think that this stuff that comes against us, well, God's just trying to test me. God doesn't ever test or tempt anyone. He gives us a way out. God does not ever test you or tempt you or send a storm your way and say, here's something bad. Let me just test you and see how you'll handle it. That's conditional, transactional love, and that is not what he does. God never asks you to prove yourself because Jesus already paid the price for you to have everything that you're entitled to him, which is a joint sonship with him. So why would Jesus go to all that trouble just for our Heavenly Father, who's supposed to be a good dad, to send us something bad to test our character, to test our patience, and to try to make us go backward? A good God doesn't do that. Now, the enemy does that. The enemy sends stuff our way all the time. And I think there is, like, nothing more frustrating to the enemy than for something to come your way and it crack you up. Right. And so I don't know. I really thought that was funny. Now, to say that I carry myself like that all the time and that's my automatic response is a complete lie. Absolutely untrue. Sometimes I am shocked and horrified, but thankfully yesterday I was thoroughly amused by what happened. It was actually the best thing that had happened to me all week. So I never thought I could say that I've been flipped off by an old lady, but now I can. Oh, just, man. So, okay. I told you all that, I think, to tell you this. So, if you go to Matthew chapter 6, okay, we're going to start in verse 21. Now, Matthew 5 and 6 is just fully loaded with amazing stuff. This is the Beatitudes are in here. There's so much teaching from Jesus. But verse 21 is where I want to start. I believe it's 21. Isn't it the I'm in NLT, Karen. I did a copy and paste. Yeah. Wherever your treasure is, the desire of your heart will also be. So let's back up a little bit, okay? We'll just go ahead and back up to 19 because I got a whole bunch of stuff that I want to share with you guys, and tell me what you think. Okay. So 19 says, "Don't store up treasures here on earth." Okay, where moths eat them and rust destroys them, and where thieves break in and steal. Store your treasures in heaven, where moths and rust cannot destroy and thieves do not break in and steal. Oh my gosh, you guys, I saw this thing yesterday where there is a church out there that is selling plots in heaven. I wish if I'm lying, I'm dying. Like, literally, boy. Oh my goodness. No, it's actually not. This is the world that we live in. Okay, so we got to take our opportunity to laugh when we can. So wherever your treasure is, the desire of your heart will be also. You know, we talk a lot about how the heart is deceptive, right? And we've started learning about how your heart is actually your imagination. We reference, heart, like my heart, but your heart is actually your imagination. It's your midbrain. And so your brain is, just going to review for you guys who've heard this before. Your brain is actually categorized into 3 sections. Your top brain is that's your upper brain. That is where all the logic is. So when your logic doesn't match up with your feelings, it's because the top part of your brain knows certain things. Your top brain knows that 2 plus 2 is 4, no matter how wrong it may feel. When you're 5 years old, your top brain eventually knows that 2 plus 2 is 4, no matter how you feel about it. Now, your midbrain is a completely different story. Your midbrain is your imagination, your thoughts, feelings, and emotions, so to speak. That is all stored in the midbrain. So a lot of times when we find ourselves like, I don't understand why I feel this way. I don't understand why I could know what I know but not feel what I should feel. How come why what I feel is not measuring up and agreeing with what I know? It's because you have to spend a certain amount of time putting new information into your midbrain in order for it to agree with the logic that you have in the top part of your brain. So when we talk about meditating on the word and setting our sights on the things above, and we study the fruits of the Spirit, it's to put new things into our imagination, into our heart, until it becomes logic. I tell you guys all the time, we put it in our head so it can get into our heart. So you take in this information and we hear things like, this says that I'm righteous and holy. I don't believe that. I don't feel that's true. Well, a thing doesn't have to feel true in order for it to be true. So you absolutely can believe everything that the word says about you and everything that Jesus says about you, but it takes a while for your imagination and your heart to catch up to what your head knows. So I know, right? So that's why it's important to go back to things like this. Wherever your treasure is, the desires of your heart will be also. So if you were to spend all of your mental energy on, let's say, a goal that you have here. Now, don't hear what I'm not saying, because it is very good to have goals, and we should all have goals, and it's okay to want a nice car, and it's okay to want a nice house and a good job and all of that. God wants his kids to prosper, so don't hear what I'm not saying. But is that your end game, your goal, and that's what your sight is set on, and that's all you want? Now, as we go further along, we start learning about tithing and stuff like that. So tithing and tithes and offerings to me is my way of showing God, I trust you to do more with this 10% than I can do with 90. I trust you. And in doing that, then I am blessed with more than I ever thought I could be, materialistically and spiritually, because I've sown the seed of my trust in him. So that is the difference between wherever your treasure is, the desire of your heart will be also. The more I am diligent to invest in God's kingdom, the more I reap from God's kingdom, and the less important materialistic things are to me. Now, if my focus is merely and solely on materialistic things, and I want these things because I want these things, and maybe not because I'm doing something that God would have me to do to get them, even if I do get these things, well, that's what's containing my heart right there, and I have no guarantee. Like, my car could have been struck by lightning last night. We were supposed to get golf ball size hail. Like, there's no guarantee for stuff like this. It is okay to have these things, and you should want to have these things eventually. But it's important to know where you're putting your heart's intention first. Where is your heart posture? What are you seeking first? As we go down here in Matthew chapter 6, he says, oh gosh, you just said it. When you seek the kingdom above everything else and live righteously, he will give you everything you need. Now, that doesn't mean do everything right and he'll give you everything you need, but do your best to be obedient, and he will give you everything you need and more. I was listening to a song by Lauren Daigle this morning, and it's one that spoke the loudest to me in my addiction. It's called Rescue. And I will never forget being in Tyro in the house that Spencer was staying at, and I couldn't stop getting high and listening to that song. And it was like God was speaking directly to me. That song says, I will send out an army to find you. In the middle of your hardest fight, it's true. I will rescue you. I hear the whisper underneath your breath. I hear your SOS. So Mark Marshall taught me that SOS, and I hope I'm getting this right, the order, because there's 2 S's, is to surrender, obey, submit. Submit, obey, surrender. When the cry of your heart is, God, I want to please you because I know in my obedience to you, that's where I have true joy. Like he takes care of us. You know, Jesus doesn't ever ask us to do everything right. Before he says live righteously, he says to seek the kingdom first. Seek God's will for you before anything else. Again, there's nothing wrong with wanting nice things. If my goal right now is to just have, materialistic stuff, I might not be here. I might pursue a high-paying job or, whatever. And again, there's nothing wrong with doing that if that's what God is telling you to do. Now, I very clearly know that that is not what God is telling me personally to do. So in order to do that and then try to bend and twist it to say, oh, God really wants me to have a nice SUV instead of my, van. That's his will for my life. It's his will for me. Then that's not true. And there's not going to be any blessing in that. So we just want to seek the kingdom before anything else. And by seeking the kingdom, Jesus taught us how to pray. He says, when you pray, go to your room, shut the door, and pray like this. Father, may your name be kept holy, your kingdom come, and your will be done, not mine, but your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. So that tells us a lot of things right there. One of them being is that we have the authority to bring the kingdom of heaven to earth because the kingdom of heaven already lives inside of us. So we spend all this time seeking out and seeking up, like, what do you want me to do? When really it's already in here. God, what do you want to do to cultivate this ground within me because the kingdom of heaven is already here? How can I submit, surrender to you so all of that can come out and I can bring your kingdom to earth? Because how many times have we sat back and thought, God, I'm really waiting for you to do something. If you would like to act anytime, Lord, that would be great. And a lot of times he does act in ways that we could never in a million years do ourselves. But he also waits for us to realize the treasure that's already within us and to do the work in cultivating that ground, to labor into the rest of bringing the kingdom to earth. Because the kingdom is in you, and you have the authority to bring that out. So let's look at verse 26. I have a little wood plaque in my closet that's got a picture of this little bird on it, and it says, be like the birds. And it's for this verse. Look at the birds. They don't plant or harvest or store food in barns, for your heavenly Father feeds them. And aren't you far more valuable to him than they are? I love this. This reminds me of being like in my, between the very vain age I was 18 to 25. Me personally, this is just me, very, very vain person. And all I cared about was how cute I was and what I wore. And, the Lord blessed me with, body before children. We all start out with that. Joke's on you if you think you're going to keep it. You ain't, I promise. Promise you. But that was where my worth and my value was. It was all tied up into that, was how I looked and what I wore. And so the treasure of my heart was in myself. And you've heard PD say before, if you're all wrapped up in yourself, that's a very small package. And it was. Because when we're in that kind of mindset, then the things that we seek are only things that will gratify us and make us feel good. And so then we actually start to believe that things that are actually poisoning us are good for us because our heart's intention is only for ourselves. So, what looks like something good is actually in disguise something that will eventually kill us because we're not really looking to do God's will when we're in that mindset. We're looking out for ourselves. And so, I really like my 40s. I genuinely do. I'm not so nuts about the crow's feet and the smile lines and the forehead wrinkles. I'm not so crazy about that. But I do like the freedom that comes with getting older. Because as you get older, you become more comfortable growing into the concept of who God created you to be on the inside and not what you can present on the outside. And so I kind of felt like the ugly duckling growing up. Like I just was super, super awkward. And so then I got to college and suddenly people paid attention to me. I was 16 when I went to JUCO. So I really thought that, I knew nothing. I just knew that, I knew that I could do things for people to pay attention to me. And so that's where all of my worth and value was rooted. And so it took a really long time to get that out. But whatever you spend a long time putting in, even though it can take a long time getting it out, it is possible to get it out and to put something new in its place. And so when we talk about like meditating on the word and praying, meditating is just intentionally thinking about something. So what are we intentionally thinking about? Because whether you think you're thinking intentionally or not, if you're not thinking intentionally, your mind is going to wander somewhere it shouldn't. Like we think of some crazy stuff when we're not intentional with our thoughts, like, right? Like your mind just drifts back to like a past moment or to a Grey's Anatomy episode you saw or to something funny you saw on Facebook. Like your brain will go all kinds of places until you are diligent to meditate on one thing. Okay, I'm going to think about this. It happens to me in prayer too, all the time. Like I'll be in the middle of praying and then all of a sudden think about something, and before I know it, I'm lost off in my own thought again when God and I were just having a really good conversation. So don't let this stuff dishearten you. It's just part of being human. And so we're learning to meditate and to pray and to be intentional with our thoughts. So let's backtrack a little bit. Oh, yeah. Go backwards up to 25. Steve actually taught me this. He said, when you feel like you have read something over and over and you're not getting anything new out of it, go backwards. And so let's just try that this morning. That is why I tell you not to worry about everyday life. Whether you have enough food and drink or enough clothes to wear, isn't life more than food and your body more than clothing? Worry is nothing more than meditating on the wrong thing. So I could say, like, I worry about Spencer. That is because I'm meditating on the wrong thing. If I am worried about my husband, it's because I'm allowing my thoughts to be, I hope he doesn't get too hot today. Oh my gosh, what if he gets too hot? What is he going to do? Do they have liquid IV? Is his boss going to be smarter this time and actually let an ambulance come get him and not let him almost die? That's worry because I'm meditating on the wrong thing. But if I choose to set my mind, even if I don't feel like it, but to set my mind on a thought path that says, I know God's got him. I know that he's going to be okay. God, I thank you that you have him in the palm of his hand. Lord, I thank you so much that you have your eye on him. And then that starts to shift my mental state and my emotional state completely because I've meditated on something different enough that I have put myself in a completely different imagination, a completely different mindset. So, mind over matter, exactly. So we actually create our world with our thoughts. There have been a lot of videos that I've watched that I'm going to keep sharing with you guys from like Dr. Caroline Leaf and the lady that does the Journey to Restoration that we're doing for part of Momentum now. And they show the scientific evidence that states that what you put your mind to, you literally change the structure of your brain by the things that you choose to think. And so when you focus on trauma or hurt or negativity,
it redesigns the pathways in your brain, because your brain was never designed to think like that. God didn't design you to think like that. And so we actually brain damage ourselves by focusing on the wrong stuff. Good news, though, when you start focusing on the right stuff and being intentional about good things, your brain structure changes then also, and it heals itself, and you make new pathways. Like if I spent my whole life saying, I hate the beach. I never want to go to the beach. Sharks eat people every day. I don't want to go. There is no way. I don't want to do that. And this may have been on a video that I had you guys watch from Lisa to Kirst. Remember when she was talking about the beach? And then she said, but what if I don't? What if I don't hate it? What if it's not bad? And so then she ends up diving into the water. She's playing, she's laughing, she's having a great time after a brief moment of like terror because like, you know, her swimsuit bottoms almost come all the way off and she has a wave take her over and everything. So after the initial shock and horror, it becomes this really great experience. And so she's therefore able to create a new thought pattern in her brain and completely change her mind about something that she swore that she thought that she knew. We have to do that with ourselves also, because the voices that speak over us and the things that we experience growing up and the things that happen that are out of control, they end up molding and shaping the way we think about ourselves, what we believe about ourselves, and what we think that we're worthy of. So what we have to do when we reach adulthood, and I love this concept, it is not your fault, and I am so sorry that things happened to you. They were not your fault. But they are also not an excuse to stay where you are. So now, as adults, we have the opportunity to seek out those things which will make us better. Because if we're not actively seeking out the things that are going to make us better, we're going to, by nature, accept the things that are bad for us. So even though it's hard to accept the concept of love and forgiveness and peace and joy, it has to be something that we're willing to meditate on enough that we actually start to believe that maybe it's possible for us, and not just our neighbor and not just our pastor, but actually true for us too. Ryan Pierre pointed out something so profound the other day because I was talking about how God gives us a new name. And there's this song that's, you know my name, you know my name. Well, not only does he know your name now, but he also knows the name in heaven that you have that you don't even know yet. He knows you by both. So when I'm singing, he knows my name, he knows my heavenly name. He knows who I truly am. He knows the original, innocent authenticity of my spirit. He knows my spirit. He knows the name of my spirit, because that's what you are. You're a spirit. You have a soul, your mind, will, and emotions, and you live in a body, or as PD likes to call it, your earth suit. So when you feel like you are out of place in this world, it's because you are. You're a spirit that's a temporary resident here. Our real home is in heaven. And all of this, I won't even try to get into, understanding why things happen and why this and why that, because that is not our place to question God. But for whatever reason, you were given this one life. And he did make you exactly the way you are. So instead of fighting it, we can choose to fight it, or choose to avoid it, or choose to believe it's all bad, or we can choose to start believing that there is something good that's been cultivated all this time, and that even in the midst of pain and suffering, God works it for good. No one can serve two masters, verse 24. For you will hate one and love the other. You will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and be enslaved to money. So I love this. We'll kind of backtrack a little bit, because it kind of goes back to trusting God with our finances. Like, he very clearly says here, it is not a sin to enjoy having money. Money is not the root of all evil. It's the love of it.
It's the love of money that is the root of all evil, because money is what keeps us tied to the world and everything the world says we need in order to have peace and happiness. And so you can't serve money. You can't have your eye on all the things you want and make that be the motivation for your life and that be the treasure of your heart and still try to fit God in over here. I tried to do that for a long time, and unfortunately, it just doesn't work that way. And what's funny now is that Spencer has a really good job, but we still have had about the same amount of income come into our house for the past several years. We have more people in our house. They eat more. Oh my God, they eat more. They eat so much. But we are faithful in tithes and offerings, and we have enough every single month. Our bills are paid. He has a savings account because he's way more responsible than I am. And we're able to do things when we need to do them. And I honestly, you guys, I don't know how we do it. I do not know how we do it other than we have God first. And I know I've learned that I'm only going to get as much from this place as I'm willing to sow into it. I can't go and eat for free and expect to get something out of it. Now, you guys, we're in a season where it's okay, and I was in that season too, where I literally did not have pocket change to put in the offering plate. But I gave my heart, and I gave my time, and I accepted help from people, and I let people pay my light bill, and I let people take my kid to church when I was too depressed to get out of bed, and I let people help me, even though it was humiliating. I got past the point where it was humiliating, and every single one of those people that helped me, the only thing they ever said about paying them back was, when you're in the position to help someone, just do it. Just do it. So that's the cool thing about kingdom business, is it's all paying it forward. So now that I'm in a position to help, that's what I like to do. And I know that just like how God took care of me, because of what he's blessed me with, I'm able to bless somebody, and then it just keeps going. So you can do way more than what you think you can. And any season that you're in is okay. Any season that you're in is nothing to be ashamed of. It is nothing to hang your head down about. Just like it's nothing to get puffed up with pride about either, because guess what? It can hailstorm on your car. You can have a tree fall on your house, whatever. It's okay to have those things. Don't put your heart in those things. I love this place because the heart of this place is for Jesus and for people. That's it. No strings attached. No nothing. It's Jesus and people. And it's all about having God's presence here and having a place where God's presence is facilitated, like it seems like 24/7 sometimes. I mean, there's no other church I know of where we can be here 7 days a week. And there's always, like, so many people have keys to this place. Like, it's great, like, because people can come in and turn the sound system on and worship. Like, that's pretty rare. As old, yes. Yeah, and we can't do that anymore. We can't do that anymore. I grew up in an Episcopal church, and it was beautiful, like the stained glass windows, and you just felt like this, when you went in there. But I would not trade where I'm at right now for the world. Let's go. I lost my place. I got to scroll back down. I accidentally hit the wrong button on my phone. So originally where I thought about starting today was this. It was with prayer. But then, you know how, like, the enemy gets to you and makes you doubt yourself? And so I got that thought instantly of, like, why you want to talk about prayer? You don't even have a prayer life that's worthy of teaching anybody else about prayer. Why did you? Okay, so that's never God. When that voice makes you feel like that, and one of those voices in your head comes at you like that's never God, ever. When you get that gentle nudge or that impression, like, hey, maybe you should do this. I'm pretty good bet that that's him, as long as it's going towards something that makes you, that you know is safe, and it might make you feel a little uncomfortable because you think, God, how am I ever going to do that by myself? Well, you can't. That's the point, and that's why God pushes you towards those things, because it causes you to rely on him. So this says,
When you pray, don't babble on and on as Gentiles do. They think their prayers are answered merely by repeating their words again and again. I know that I'm a talker, and sometimes I catch myself when I'm praying. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm praying for way too long, but I just can't stop. I want to cover all of the bases, and I want to, I'm gonna tell God that we love Him 500 times, and we'll just say all the things. Okay, it's heart posture again. But this says, don't be like them, for your Father knows exactly what you need even before you ask Him. And this goes into so many places. Like, Paul talks about later on that I will pray with my spirit and I will pray with my understanding. Basically saying, I will speak in tongues, I will sing in tongues, and then I will sing and pray with words that I understand. I talked to Stephen Ruth yesterday, and I said, I feel like my brain is broken. I feel like I have the weight of the world on my mind between work and home. All the decisions that I make and people's lives hang in the balance on my discernment of the decisions that I make. And so while it looks easy outside looking in to be a leader and to have the authority to make the decisions that we make, it is a very heavy load to carry that you absolutely have to have God for, because you end up having to make decisions that may not be the best possible outcome for one, but you have to do it for a heart of protecting the rest. Sometimes you have to make decisions that, this is me personally, we make decisions based on a boundary for a blessing that ensures that we can still spend time with our families. Because if we did things around here the way people really want us to do them, I would constantly tell my kids, nope, sorry, hang on, nope, sorry, gotta go, nope, sorry, gotta, nope, sorry, gotta go, gotta go. I can't do that to my family. We talk about work-life balance and all of that. So everything, the word says, let everything you do be out of love. And so decisions that we make, even the hard decisions, they always come from a place of love. And the ones that are tough for one person, I guarantee you, are made with a broken heart. But we do the best that we can. So, love means boundaries. Exactly. Love doesn't always mean yes. Sometimes love looks like no. And we don't understand it. Right. Right. So boundaries are actually a way of fighting for a relationship. It's not a way to shut a person down and to go from one extreme of, I will do absolutely anything you ask of me and I'm here for you. And like Jesus, I will lay down my life for you and let you wipe your feet on my face because I'm a doormat. From being at that extreme to, I'm just not going to anymore. I'm just completely done and you're cut off. Boundaries help keep us in the middle. And they actually help preserve the relationship because we still love the person. So boundaries enable us to maintain a heart posture of love for the other person and for ourselves. And saying no sometimes looks like love for you and it looks like love for them. It may not feel like love to them, but that's okay. We're going to constantly be misunderstood anyway. We have to know, and we have to keep in constant prayer and communication with God, just hoping that people understand that we always come from a place of love and a heart posture of love. And if your neighbors don't understand that, that's okay. God does. God does. I can't tell you how many times I thought PD was being mean because of a decision he made or I didn't understand. This was back a long time ago, because my mental headspace wasn't right. It was me. It was my perception. I didn't understand what he was doing in the moment. But later I did. And later I knew that it was out of a place of love for me and for everybody else. He didn't ask me to take a step down from the worship team because he was being mean. He did it because I was not spiritually in a place that was going to be conducive to facilitating the presence of God to the benefit of other people. That's why when someone's in active addiction and we prefer that they don't help lead worship, it's not because we don't love them. It's because we love them enough that we don't want them in that position, number one, because it's spiritually heavy. When you try to act like you're full of the Spirit, but you've got all of that influence over you, that's hell. That's a terrible place to be, and I know because I've been there. And then we also have to think about how does it benefit you? How does it affect the people? Is it going to be spiritually healthy for you? So these are just some of the things that we deal with. But going back to prayer, yeah. Oh, backwards. Go up to verse 6. But when you pray, go away by yourself, shut the door behind you, and pray to your Father in private. Then your Father, who sees everything, will reward you. So to me, that says, your Father who sees what's done in secret and who hears what you pray in secret will answer those prayers openly. He will provide the solutions openly. That way, when people say, oh my gosh, how did that happen? Well, I asked God to move, and he moved. God did that. God did that. God did that. It wasn't my fancy prayer. It wasn't anything that I did other than making the choice to take it to my Father in prayer. A lot of times we say, oh, I guess all I can do is pray now. That's great. Prayer is like the best thing that we can do. We treat prayer like it's a last resort, like all I can do is pray for you now. Yeah, we should start there. Prayer is good, and there's so much power in prayer. Prayer is how we realize more and more our authority to bring the kingdom of heaven out of us to the people around us. We don't learn who we are without talking to our Father and taking the time to listen. I love what PD shared a couple of weeks ago when he was talking about like being in the hot tub and the water coming up above his ears and he couldn't hear anything and he couldn't talk and he's just like getting comfortable with the silence. I feel where he's coming from with that, because as much as I struggle hearing the sound of my own voice when I pray, can anybody relate to that? Like you have those moments you just feel stupid and you don't want to hear your voice and you second guess everything you're saying and you just think you're wrong. So yeah, same. But I also have trouble listening sometimes if I'm not in a good place, because I have trouble discerning what's him and what's me. You know what I mean? So prayer requires listening every bit as much as it requires us doing our part in talking. And the crazy thing about God is that he doesn't always say what we want him to. Do y'all know that God does not bend his will to fit our agenda? It is rude. It's real rude sometimes. I know. Yeah, it is. It's real rude because he just won't give me what I want. He really acts like he knows better than me. I don't understand it whatsoever, because I think my ideas are really great. But turns out they're not. No. And his way is always better. I share with you guys often, if I would have got everything I thought I wanted when I was newly sober, I would have a way different life, and it would be terrible. I would not have the life that I have now. And that only comes on the other side of submitting, obeying, and surrendering everything you think you know. Give your gifts. Oh, here. I'm going to go back to some notes that I took, and we'll wrap up here pretty quick. All right. Go to 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 18. This kind of goes back to imagination and intentionally thinking about good things. It says, we don't look at the troubles we see now. Rather, we fix our gaze on things that cannot be seen. For the things we see now will soon be gone, but the things we cannot see will last forever. So we don't look at the troubles we can see now. It's just, yeah, I know. Stop right there. That could be a whole nother hour right there. We don't look at things we can see now. Why? Because sometimes our present circumstances are disheartening. Sometimes they are discouraging. Sometimes we feel like it will be like this forever and there is no way out. We feel like this season will never end. That's when we have to remember that our feelings do not equate fact. So stay right there, because I read something else today that I really want to make sure I share with you guys. We need connection to survive. Human beings are designed for connection. The baseline of true connection starts with a radical acceptance of what is. and knowing that fact does not always match feeling. We have to be willing to accept what is without focusing so much on what is and what it is in front of us, because that can dominate you sometimes. It'll completely overpower you, and it takes over your imagination. We get stuck thinking, I'm never going to get done with this contract. I'm never going to be able to go anywhere. I'm never going to be able to do anything. That's what we're meditating on, and that's where we're going, and that is the world that we're creating in our mind that is going to come to fruition in our life, because that's what we think, so that's what we believe, and nobody can tell us any different. And if we're not going to be patient, we're just not going to be patient, and we've already made up our mind that it sucks, so that's where we're going to stay. So don't set your mind on what's right in front of you. Where'd I go? Where'd I go? Now I'm bouncing back and forth between 3 screens, and I can't remember what notes I was on. Hang on, because we were really going somewhere with that. Don't look at the troubles we can see now. Don't look at the rejection you feel now. Don't look at the inadequacy that you feel now. Don't look at the loneliness that you feel now. Rather, instead, we fix our gaze on things that can't be seen. And a lot of times, things that can't be felt. It's not just things that you can't see with your physical eye. Maybe it's what you can't see with your spiritual eyes. Maybe you can't see yourself beyond here. You can't see yourself in a loving, peaceful home. You can't see yourself with a future. But that's hope, and we have to have hope. It's hope that keeps us going. Proverbs says, hope deferred makes the heart sick. And so if we have nothing to hope for, we walk around sick and wounded and dejected and depressed by what we see right in front of us, because we've convinced ourselves that this is fact and this is true and this is forever, when it's not. We fix our gaze on things that cannot be seen. For the things we see now will soon be gone, but the things we cannot see will last forever. And in the meantime, I want to make sure that I share this thought with you also. Be a good steward of your suffering. Whatever it is that's causing you pain, or whatever it is that you've walked through, and I see you guys doing that all the time. You're being good stewards of your suffering when you are vulnerable enough to tell your story and to meet someone else where they're at and have that connection and that radical acceptance of what is. You know, not to point Walker out, but I will anyway. We had a great conversation with Walker yesterday, and it was a hard conversation, but I feel like I actually finally know you now. After all these months, I feel like I've gotten one step closer to actually knowing what an amazing person you actually are, and knowing who you are, and not just, you know, the guy I give crap to every day and hope that, you know, eventually he'll pipe up and say something. But those steps in relationship don't come without hard conversations. And both parties have to be willing to have a radical acceptance of what is. And that's what we can build on for connection. And then there was just a couple of other things. Wherever your treasure's at, your heart will be also. Oh, go back down to, we're going to go back to Matthew 6 real quick. We're almost done. I'm coming in for a landing. Oh, gosh. Petey and I are more alike than I realize. And he always apologizes every time he points it out. I'm like, it's not a bad thing. Like, that's one of the best compliments I've ever received, is to hear that I have a character quality similar to his. Man, where is it at? Jesus asked, first one to find this verse hypothetically gets $5. If I had $5, I would give it to you. He says, why do you have so little faith? He's talking about the flowers. Look at the plants. Look at the lilies. Never mind, I found it. I win my own fake $5. Matthew 6, verse 30. And if God cares so wonderfully for wildflowers that are here today and thrown into the fire tomorrow, he will certainly care for you. Why do you have so little faith? Like, and that's not Jesus getting a jab in right there. He's trying to remind us that God pays such intricate attention to flowers and trees and birds. Aren't you much, much more? than they are. You're much, much more. The word says that he made us a little lower than the angels. Just a little. Man, yeah. And being a joint heir with Christ on top of that. These are the things that we have to meditate on and think about so we don't get stuck in whatever rut we have in front of us right now. Whatever you're dealing with right now is not forever, and it is absolutely no indication of what your future is going to be if you're looking at it in the negative. But if you're looking at it in the positive, you are feeding the hope that is still down inside you that is begging to come out. That hope way down on the inside that says, I know that I'm a child of God. I know that God loves me. I know that he has a good purpose and a plan for my life. I know that I am somebody. I am somebody. I am. I'm somebody. You're somebody. You are God's kid, and there is nobody in the entire universe like you, and he did that on purpose. That was not an accident. So seek the kingdom of God above all else and live righteously, and he will give you everything you need. I love the last prayer that Jesus prayed before he went to the cross because he wraps up this whole beautiful thing with not my will, but your will. And that is the most pivotal, powerful point of surrender we can ever be at is when we say, not my will, but your will. And if you're not there yet, that's okay. Because it's scary to get to that place, especially when life circumstances have taught you that you can't trust anyone. That if you place your trust in someone and they have authority over you, that they will hurt you and mistreat you and use you and lie about you and set you up for failure. So we have to intentionally set ourselves on a different path. But the more you pray and the more you talk with Holy Spirit, the more you will start to become more and more sure of the fact that he will guide you along a good path, and you can absolutely trust him to surprise you with things that are far greater, far better than what you were trying to intentionally plan by yourself. So don't worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will bring its own worries. Today's trouble is enough for today. Today's enough for today. We're not guaranteed tomorrow. We're not guaranteed our smoke break in a couple of minutes. We're not guaranteed anything. So instead of wasting our time just, thinking about here and now and what I got going on and what I got to do and all of the blah, 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 and the what ifs, God, I trust you. God, thank you that I'm breathing right now. Thank you that I'm sober and whatever's coming my way, I can see it with clear eyes. I got a clear mind. There's good all around me. And we got to start pulling out the good on purpose, right? You guys saw me. I love being vulnerable with you guys. I was there this morning. I don't want to teach. I don't want to, I sat in my car before I came in, and I was talking to Spencer, and I said, I just don't want to. I don't want to. I don't want to. I really struggled the last few days with feeling like what I do doesn't matter. But what you do does matter. Your feelings are not factual. I know I got to take my own advice. That's another thing that he does that's just real awesome. I don't ever tell you guys anything that I'm not going through myself, and this is what it's really like inside my mind, and this is really what I go through. And so when I tell you guys to remind yourself of these things, I have to remind myself of these things too. If people misunderstand you, that is okay. They are God's kids too. And they are worthy of love too, and God wants to meet them where they are too. So the best thing that we can do is to say, search me, God, and know my anxious thoughts, and if there's any unrighteous way in me, then point it out to me, because I'm trying to seek your kingdom above everything else. And God is going to meet that invitation with open arms. He cannot wait for you to realize how much he loves you. And he wants you to have a good life, and you can absolutely trust him with it. So I think we are going to wrap up and pray, and we'll take a break.